So welcome back. So 2 to go. So this is the priest video, and then the last one's going to be the mage, which is going to come in the next couple of days. So if you haven't seen any of the other class videos on what's changed from classic to TBC, make sure you go check those out because they're quite good. So looking at talents, abilities, rotation, stat priority, my thoughts on the class as well, having played all of the classes, all of the specs. You get to see a bit of footage as well. So we're going to jump straight into it, looking at talents anyway. So just a quick thank you for supporting the channel. The channel growth has been phenomenal, can't thank you enough. While the support's there, obviously I'm going to keep pumping content out for you to watch. So the second lot of these videos, once the mage one's done, is going to be basically a gearing path for every spec. So you know what quests give good rewards that you might want to make sure you do when you're leveling up. So when you ding 70, you've got that item. The heroics that you need to farm when you ding 70 for specifically your spec. What reputations are good for you. So that's going to be a second series, quite in depth for every single spec. So that's going to be coming out over the next couple of months, with trying to do at least 2 or 3 a week. Let's get into it. So just make sure you like, subscribe, check out the giveaway. So we're over halfway to the first giveaway now, which is 3 months game time. All you got to do is be subscribed, but make sure you obviously ring the bell as well so you get notifications every time I drop a new video. And expect the production quality of these videos to go up quite substantially in the next week or so, because I've ordered loads of new equipment which I literally can't wait to play with. So I might even put a little video out on what I'm going to be using so you can have a look. So cool, let's get into it. Alright guys, so welcome back. We're going to dive straight in. If you've seen any of my other TBC change videos, then you know the general format is talents, then new abilities, then rotation based on the new abilities and talents and what effect they have on the rotation. Then we're going to look at PvE and PvP viability, and then finally just my closing thoughts after playing the class for a fairly limited amount of time, but actually a priest I did play a fair amount back in TBC anyway. So we're going to dive straight in with talents. This video is going to be probably quite short. So the shortest one so far was the warrior, which was the first one I put out, which was around 16 minutes. I reckon this will probably be about the same, so shouldn't take too long because there's not been that many changes, and I'm not really going to go into rotation or stat priorities for either of the healing specs for Disc or Holy. So when it comes to the rotation piece, we're only really going to be looking at Shadow. So that's going to cut a lot of the time down. The specs in general have changed quite a bit. Obviously Shadow is viable in PvE at the moment, which we're going to get into later, and when I say at the moment I mean in Classic, but in TBC it's actually quite a required spec in raids, particularly in early content, so we'll get into that, so make sure you stick around until the end when we start talking about that. So yeah, jumping straight in. So in tier 1 I'm only, again like the same as the other videos, I'm only going to go over what's changed. I'm not going to talk through every talent, just the ones that have changed either slightly or are completely new additions. So tier 1 is exactly the same. This is the TBC window that I've got here, so I'm in a TBC at the moment, and then obviously I've got WoW Classic open. So tier 1 remains unchanged. Tier 2 has just added Dispel Resist to Silent Resolve. So Silent Resolve at the moment reduces threat generated by your spells by 20% when you've got 5 points in it. So you still get that, but you also get 20% chance that your spells are not going to be dispelled. So most specs have got this. Warlocks have got it on their dots. Resto Druids have got it on their hots. Most of the classes have got some sort of dispel resist. So this purely for PvP balance, mainly around arenas. So then moving down into so everything else remains the same. Moving down into tier 3. So the only change here is meditation. So meditation currently in Classic gives you 15% mana regen to continue while casting. So mana is less of an issue for most classes in TBC because they get buffs to their talents like this. So now you get 30% of your mana regen while casting. So it's doubled the effect, which is lovely. Moving down to tier 4, because these two in tier 4 are still the same, which is mental agility and improved in a fire. The only change is improved mana burn. So improved mana burn now reduces the cast time of your mana burn by 1 second with 2 points in it. Whereas on Classic at the moment it's only half a second. And I know what you're thinking, as if mana burn wasn't overpowered enough. Yep. So swiftly moving on. So the mental strength is still the same, and so is Divine Spirit, you still get that. But now you've actually got improved Divine Spirit, which again, throughout all the tiers of raiding, this is going to be quite a sought after talent. So even as a holy priest, you will probably go down, if you haven't got another priest in the group that's got improved DS, you'll more than likely want to take this because it's just free spell damage and healing for everybody you put Divine Spirit on. So your Divine Spirit and Prayer Spirit spells also increase the target spell damage and healing by an amount equal to 5% of their total spirit. So that's 10% of their total spirit. 3 plus damage, 3 plus healing. Going to be a requirement to have a priest in the raid using this buff. Don't really need to say a lot more than that. Really nice, nice sort of utility that you bring in, or raid buff, whatever you want to call it. Another reason to have a priest in the group. Let's put it that way. Then moving down, so we've got the addition of focused power. So force of will, the 1% spell damage and crit is still there. So you can see it there in Classic, and it's still there in TBC. But now you've got an addition of focused power. So focused power, your Smite, Mind Blast, and Mass Dispel have an additional 2% chance to hit, so that's 4% with 2 points in. In addition to that, your Mass Dispel cast time is reduced by 1 second with both points in it. So Mass Dispel is nice in PvE. There's certain situations where you use it, but it is ultimately a PvP ability. The majority of its use will be in PvP, and the fact that you're getting the additional hit chance on Mind Blast, Smite, your Mass Dispel, it is really, this talent is focused on a PvP talent, but it's got its uses, of course, in PvE. Not a lot else to say there. So Power Infusion. So Power Infusion's actually changed. I'll let you decide in the comments whether it's for the better or for the worse. So currently in Classic, Power Infusion infuses the target with power, increasing their spell damage and healing by 20%. So a flat 20% damage buff for 15 seconds, which, putting it on a mage, putting it on a warlock, it's really, really nice. The new version, or the revamped version in TBC, has got the same cooldown and everything, but now it gives spellcasting speed by 20% and reduction to mana cost by 20%. So now it could be more classed. It's still a good DPS cooldown to put on a mage, or to put on a warlock, or any caster, a boomkin, whatever, an elemental shaman, but it could also be used as a personal cooldown. You're pumping heals out faster for less cost. You could be putting it on another healer, a different healer who maybe has got higher healing power than you and is putting out bigger numbers, so it's going to be more of a benefit to the raid that you put this on them. But now it's not really going to be one of those that's strictly reserved for DPS. I don't think it is. It's going to depend on the encounter. If the encounter's quite a tight DPS check, or it's going to be more beneficial to kill the boss quicker, maybe you're going to skip a phase or something like that, then you're going to want to put it on your DPS. But if it's a healing intensive fight, then you might want to put it on a healer. So just different options. So now all the other talents in Discipline are obviously new, so we'll just start from left to right. So Focus Will. After taking a critical hit, you gain the Focus Will effect, reducing all damage taken by 2% and increasing healing effects on you by 4%, stacks up to 3 times. So that's with 1 point in, obviously. So this is, again, really a PvP talent. Disc Priests are very good in PvP, but we'll get to that when we get to the viability section. But they're very good. They've got a lot of these sort of abilities where they reduce their damage taken, increasing the healing they've got on them, blah blah. Reflective shields, which we're going to get onto next. They've got a lot of different PvP utility just from talents. So this is another one of them. And then reflective shields, like I just said, so causes 30% of the damage absorbed by your power word shield to reflect back at the target. This damage causes no threat. So this could be used in PvE. But the thing is, you're not going to take a Disc Priest to many raids in TBC. At the moment, obviously, it's very viable in Classic, and it's a good raiding spec. In TBC, Holy is just a hands-down much clearer winner. Or was. So you've got new subscriber, thank you very much. So it's very situational, I suppose. In PvP, it's going to be absolutely brilliant all the time. If you're in twos, you've got it on the rogue, you've got it on yourself. It doesn't matter who you got it on. That damage is being reflected very good. In PvE, you wouldn't really want to put it on a warrior tank because it's going to limit their rage generation. You may get away with putting it on a prot paladin, well, you would get away with putting it on a prot paladin and either a druid feral tank, to be fair, because most of the rage you build as a feral tank is from you attacking, not getting attacked. So it's got its place in PvE, but if you just constantly were shielding a warrior just so they can reflect a little bit of damage, it's not going to be worth it, especially on the basis it causes no threat. So it's nice, but PvP. I think we're learning quite early on while looking at these disc talents that it's definitely meant to be the go-to PvE spec. So moving down, Enlightenment. So increase your total stamina, intellect and spirit by 1%. per point, so 5% stamina, intellect, and spirit. Not a lot to say there. Bit boring, to be fair, but still very nice. You know, your main stats, an extra 5% of them. Before you get down to your new ability and final talent, so pain suppression. So instantly reduces a friendly target's threat by 5%. We'll ignore that bit, not particularly important. And reduces all damage taken by 40% and increases resistance to dispel mechanics by 65% for 8 seconds. So 65% dispel resistance, which if you was to think that could stack with the 20% you get from silent resolve, so if you was to pain suppression yourself, you've now got 85% of not being dispelled, which is nice. Other classes actually get a higher percentage than 20% dispel resistance, so you could be bringing them closer to 100%. But the main thing here is the damage reduction, obviously a 40% damage reduction cooldown. Now, this is obviously it's God mode in PvP, but it's even got its uses in PvE. I know I said that you wouldn't raid as a Disc Priest, but if you was to be raiding as a Disc Priest, let's say you're in a bit of a casual guild and you PvP, but you do a bit of Karazhan, this can absolutely be used on the main tank. Reduces threat by 5%. That's quite minuscule. Unless you've got a green geared tank and everybody else or the DPS are wearing tier 6, dropping 5% threat, you may have to pay attention to threat meters, obviously. You know, if someone's just about to take over and you're going to bang pain suppression on them and then that's going to put the second on the threat above the first, then you probably wouldn't want to use it. But threat is pretty much a non-issue in TBC, which if you want to hear about tanking in TBC, I'll put a video up in the top now. Have a look at it. It's a discussion about tanking in TBC, so learn a little bit. So that's Disc in a pretty good place, but yeah, I think we can all agree, heavily aimed towards PvP. Then if we move into Holy, just going to have to switch that out for a second. So moving on to Holy, so tier 1, 2 and 3 all remain completely unchanged. So you can look at your talents in Classic and they will be exactly the same in TBC. Then if we move down to for tier 4, so Holy Reach has had Circle of Healing applied to it. That's it. So where's Holy Reach? There. So the one that increases your range, currently in Classic, by 20%. Excuse me. So you've now got Circle of Healing on there as well, which Circle of Healing, just jumping forward, is going to be your final talent and a really overpowered group heal. So happy days, not a lot to talk about there. So then when we look at tier 5, so currently you've got Improved Prayer of Healing, which reduces the mana cost of your Prayer of Healing spell by 10%. So you've still got that, but it's also added Prayer of Mending to it. So Prayer of Mending is one of the new abilities that we will look at when we get to the abilities. But quite a minor change, not really worth talking about too much. So tier 6, you've had... So we're in tier 6 at the moment, all you've got is Spiritual Healing. You've still got that, remains exactly the same. But you've now got Surge of Light. So your spell crits have a 25% chance to cause your next smite spell to be instant cast, cost no mana, but be incapable of a critical hit. So this effect lasts 10 seconds. So 50% chance on a spell crit to be able to do a free smite, basically. But it can't crit. So quite nice. Definitely nice in PvP, obviously. But even in PvE, you know, if there's not a lot of damage going around and you're getting Surge of Light procs, it's arguable whether you would even take this talent in a proper PvE spec. But let's say you really like it because you like the ability to go out and do a bit of solo farming as a healing spec, then it's quite nice. You know, you can throw the odd smite out, but as I say, arguably you probably won't have it in a normal PvE raiding spec. So then going down to the next tier, so we've got tier 7, haven't we? We're on tier 7. So you've still got Lightwell. So the cooldown's been reduced. That's it. It's now 6 minutes. 6 minutes for a pretty pathetic ability, to be fair. I mean, it's 10 minutes in Classic, so the only change is that's been reduced. Cool, we won't even bother talking about that. So then you've got the new abilities. So Holy Concentration gives you a 2% chance to enter a clear casting state when casting any Flash Heal, Binding Heal, or Greater Heal spell. The clear casting state does what every clear casting state does and makes that spell, or you know, of the 3 spells so that you can cast, so Heal, Flash Heal, Binding Heal, or Greater Heal, they're free. You know, typical clear casting, there's not really a lot to talk about there, but with 3 points in, it'll be 6%. So very nice, getting free heals. And then Bless Resilience. So critical hits made against you have a 20% chance to prevent you from being critically hit again. When I say you, whoever you're healing. So the target. Nice for PvP. Again, the only real problem with this for PvP is you're probably going to be disc if you're PvPing. So I find it a bit strange that they've just chucked a random sort of PvP orientated talent right down there at the bottom in Holy, when there's not really that much else in the whole spec that's really orientated towards PvP. So I mean, arguably Blessed Recovery. When you're struck by a melee or range crit, you heal, some of the damage, but we've got that in Classic as well. So, but yeah, either way, you could PvP, I'm sure, very successfully as Holy, but me personally, it is a very opinionated video. I would be disc, and I'm sure most priests would agree. Final new talents before you get to your big juicy circle of healing. So your greater heal spells gain an additional 4%, and your flash heal and binding heal gain an additional 2% of your bonus healing effects. So that's going to be 20%. 20% and 10%. So 20% on greater heal and 10% on everything else. So yeah, not a lot to talk about there. More healing power. Nice. Then moving down, Circle of Healing. So this is really good, really broken actually. There used to be a lot of... Well, it actually got nerfed in a later patch to add a longer cooldown and everything, because you could more or less just run around just using this one ability and top healing meters. So look forward to having fun with it. So it heals the friendly target and that target's party members within 15 yards of the target for 246 to 270. So that's only rank 1. I believe you get rank 1 at 50. And then you actually get another rank between 66 and 70, somewhere around there. So you actually get a second rank of it as well. So yeah, very good ability, really good. Holy is going to be in a fantastic place, I'll tell you now. Really, really fun to play. I used to really enjoy playing a Holy Paladin, Holy Priest. I did only play in Karazhan, never done anything other than that. It was just a sort of casual ult, if you like, but really good. So let's move on to Shadow. Shadow's not going to take very long either. I mean, they've got some really cool stuff, but it's more just buffing what you've already got. So let me just move this over a little bit. So first tier has remained the same. Oh, actually, tier 1, 2, and 3 have all remained exactly the same. Tier 4, so your shadow weaving. So I am actually a spec that this is not the spec that you would play, and I'll explain why when we get to the rotation talent spec section of the video. But so just ignore the talents I've got. This is not optimal. So shadow weaving gives you, with 5 points, which you probably wouldn't take, and let's say we'll get into that later. So shadow weaving spells have a 80% chance of what I've got at the moment, to cause your target to be vulnerable to shadow damage. This vulnerability increases the shadow damage dealt to your target by 2%, stacks up to 5 times. So that's going to be 10%. Very nice. Yeah, nothing much to talk about there. But if we look at it in Classic, it increases, so it's still it's 3% in Classic, stacking up 5 times, so you get 15%. Now it's only giving 10%. So you've had a 5% nerf, but it's not really worth worrying about too much, if I'm honest with you, because you're going to get so much damage from other places soon. So moving on. So next tier, that was all that changed in tier 4, by the way. So in Classic at the moment, you've got Vampiric Embrace. So afflicts the target with shadow energy, blah blah. Causes members to be healed for 20% of any shadow damage you do. And then you can put another 2 points into it. So you're going to do 30% of your shadow damage is going to be converted to healing for your party. In TBC, it's 25% of your shadow damage and another 2 points to take it, another 10% up. So 35. So there's a 5% buff there, which is nice. So yeah, nothing to complain about really. But then we've got an extra talent added in here. So Focus Mind reduces the mana cost of your Mind Blast, Mind Control, and Mind Flay spells by 15%. So 2 of your most used abilities are there, Mind Blast and Mind Flay. 15% flat damage reduction of it is, yeah, very nice. Then we've got some Shadow Resilience, which again is just for PvP, but Shadow is going to be quite good in PvP in the right hands. It's going to be one of those where you'll see a lot of Disc Priests, but then you'll occasionally see a Shadow Priest who can like 3v1 people, because they've got so many dots, so much control, so much self-healing, self-mana return. They are very good. So reduces the chance you'll be critically hit by all spells by 2% per slot, so 4%, 2% per point, sorry. So 4% in total. That's very nice. Then, yeah, and then obviously darkness has remained exactly the same. Then you got shadow form. So you've still got shadow form and it's exactly the same. We're down to the last tier now, so I can just close this. So the new abilities that you get in. So shadow power, increase the critical strike chance of your mind blast and shadow word death by 15%. So 2 of your hardest hitting abilities, which is, yeah, nice, welcomed. Obviously, shadow word death, if you don't know what it is, we're going to get into that once we just get through these last couple of talents in the abilities section. Then misery, so your shadow word pain, mind flay, and vampiric touch spells also cause the target to take an extra 5% spell damage. So just to demonstrate just on this mob here, if I just get it dotted up, you can see the misery debuff, spell damage taken increased by 5%. Shadow vulnerability is also stacking up nicely, and this is why we don't really need 5 points in it, which we'll get to in a little while, because it stacks up pretty quick anyway. And then shadow word death, just to show you, big 1111 hit without critting, which is lovely. They're beasts. Shadow priests are beasts. And then you got vampiric touch. So this is amazing. This is what you're going to get brought to raids for. So causes 495 shadow damage over 15 seconds to your target and causes all party members to gain mana equal to 5% of any shadow spell damage you deal. So you are now a mana battery. You'll be possibly put in the healers group. You'll more than likely see 2 shadow priests in the majority of raids, just because that spell is so good, especially in early tiers. It's almost required. As the fights are taking quite a while because you've got bad gear or whatever, the mana return is going to be really, really good, and you are absolutely going to be wanted in raids. But I mean, look how quick that kills. It's ridiculous, and it's really fun as well. So yeah, good time to be a priest, especially if you want to be shadow. So that's the talents. We'll leave the talents there. Now let's look at the new abilities. I appreciate I'm tearing through this. I am trying to tear through it because I don't want you to get bored. So shadow word death, I've already shown you what it does. It's an execute, basically, but I will just quickly read it out to you anyway. So a word of dark binding that inflicts 629 to 731 shadow damage to the target. If the target is not killed by shadow word death, the caster takes damage equal to the damage inflicted. So if you don't kill him, you're going to take the damage from it. So you want to really be trying to kill him. Not in raids, because you're going to have a healer, but if you're just running around just doing some grinding or whatever, try and make sure that you use it when it's low enough that it's going to finish them off. Because I can use it about now, and it crit, so it didn't matter anyway. But the speed this thing kills at is just phenomenal. I love it. Bearing in mind I've played every class now over the last few weeks except for mage, because mage is the one, that's the next video to come, and I'm actually getting a lot of advice on the mage one from somebody in the guild who's played mage for years and years, because he's played since vanilla to an amazing standard all the way through. So I'm going to be taking his advice on that one. So if it's wrong, I'll give you his email address and you can hurl him loads of abuse. So that's shadow word death anyway, but it's nice just to see how quick this thing kills. As I say, it's an absolute beast. So the next ability that you will get will be Binding Heal. So this is obviously more for you holy priest, disc priest. So it's just a heal where you heal the friendly target and yourself at the same time. Low threat, that's largely irrelevant, but it's a 1.5 second cast. So if you're taking damage and the tank's taking damage, you've no longer got to suicide to keep the tank alive or let the tank die to keep yourself up. You can heal both of you at the same time with a really effective heal. It is quite expensive. Mana wise, I would say it's quite expensive. So 705. If we then look at a flash heal is only 470, and it heals a similar amount. Let's just say similar amount. There's no point doing too much maths, is there? We've all been on lockdown for so long now. We probably forgot how to count and add stuff up anyway. So that's Binding Heal. Shadow Fiend. This is just I'll actually demonstrate. I'll just kill something for you so you can see exactly what it does. But Shadow Fiend, I'll open it up here so you can see, creates a shadowy fiend to attack the target. Caster receives mana when the Shadow Fiend deals damage. So basically, when you're low on mana, you pop out the fiend, and it will return mana for you. And it also does relatively decent damage. So let me just dot both of these up. And then let's get the mana fiend out, so you can see exactly what it does. So you can see me getting 216, 488, so it must have crit then. just getting, yeah, plenty of mana. And I mean, just the speed it kills at. Sorry, I just can't get over it. If you've watched any of the other videos, then you'd have seen me like killing some stuff on most classes, and this by far is the quickest killing character I've played on, even over Feral Druid, and I'm a Feral Druid. I love Feral, obviously. So, yeah, Shadow Fiend, really good addition to the toolbox. So then, Prayer of Mending is very nice. So it does, we'll pretend you've got no healing power or anything. Let's just say it was a base of 800. So it places a spell on the target that heals them for 800 the next time they take damage. When the heal occurs, Prayer of Mending jumps to a raid member within 20 yards, jumps up to 5 times, and lasts 30 seconds each time it jumps. Now, that's brilliant. It's a fire and forget spell. You just do it, throw it on the tank. You know it's going to bounce around a bit. It's only got a 10-second cooldown, so you pretty much will just be firing this away on cooldown. So if you was to say 800 per jump, it's going to do 5 jumps. So you're going to get 4k healing from a 390 mana cost spell. So now let's compare that to when we was looking at Flash Heal. So it's going to do 4k for less mana. So it's going to do nearly 4 times the amount of a Flash Heal if it does all 5 jumps successfully for less mana than a Flash Heal. Really, really efficient heal. So yeah, again, really good one to add to the toolbox. Then finally, Mass Dispel. So again, very much a PvP talent. It's got its uses in PvE, don't get me wrong, but the fact that you can just Mass Dispel away crazy things in PvP, it's, yeah, really, really good. Really good. So, yeah, not a lot to talk about. I'll read the description out for you anyway, but it's fairly straightforward. So, dispels magic in a 15-yard radius, removing 1 harmful spell from each friendly target and 1 beneficial spell from each enemy target. Affects a maximum of 10 friendly targets and 10 enemy targets. This dispel is potent enough to remove magic effects that are not normally undispellable. So this is like Paladin Bubbles, for example. It's a great spell. That's why, getting yourself in PvP as a Disc Priest, using things, like the Focus Power talents that I've got on screen now, where it reduces the cast time of Mass Dispel by 1 second in total, when it's only a 1.5 second cast. When you need to get that clutch dispel off, it's only half a second, and if you happen to have anything on you or your rogue partner or whoever you're PvPing with has got something, it's going to dispel them as well. Just, yeah, brilliant new ability. So yeah, that's the new abilities. So we'll move on to this is the part when we normally get rotation. I'm just going to put the talent specs up for a minute, because we're not really going to talk about rotation when it comes to Holy or Disc, because you know that it's a reactive spec. Your job is to heal and not run out of mana. That's it. Keep people alive. There's a couple of different types of specs. So there's 2 Holy specs. Let's put them both on screen now. So the Holy spec on the left is your Circle of Healing spec. So this is very much Circle of Healing, Prayer of Mending, Prayer of Healing, all just going AoE, bouncing heals around, not really focusing much on a tank or single targets. So very much the raid healer, if you like. Then the spec on the right is the IDS spec, so to get your improved Divine Spirit. So if you're the only healing priest, because the Shadow Priest would never take this, obviously. So if you're the only healing priest in a raid, you want to be the IDS spec, which then you're going to be using more flash heals, heal, greater heal, still going to be using POM, those sort of things. But yeah, it's a more single target healing build, but you bring that really juicy buff to the rest of the raid. So that's cool. So with those out the way, we can then talk about Shadow, because Shadow at least has got a rotation. It's got proper, stat priorities. Obviously, stat priorities as healers is fairly easy. You're going for, plus healing power, mana per 5, intellect and spirit. Healing items are very easy to know what's an upgrade and what's not. So for Shadow, actually, I'll just show you the rotation quickly for Holy Priests. I'll put the rotation on now just for you. Right, so now you know what the rotation is for Holy Priests. We can move on to something that's actually useful. Shadow, getting all that mana back. That's what we want. So the rotation, it's not really a rotation. It's more it's a priority list. It's that, that you've got to keep X, Y, and Z up at all times, or as close to 100% uptime as possible. So we'll start from the top. What have you got to maintain? So you need to maintain Vampiric Touch, because this is what's going to give your raid mana and what's going to secure your raid spot. So you want 100% uptime on Vampiric Touch. Obviously, Shadow Word Pain, you want to keep 100% uptime on. So this is going to be stacking your Shadow Weaving, and so is Vampiric Touch. So you want both of those on at all times. Mind Blast on cooldown. So whenever it's off cooldown, make sure you Mind Blast in. Shadow Word Death on cooldown when the boss is obviously within Shadow Word Death range. But pay attention to your health, because it's a raid boss. You're not going to do Shadow Word Death and it's going to die. So make sure you've got enough health to be able to do that Shadow Word Death without killing yourself. Otherwise you'll get shouted at for being a big noob. So try not to do that. And then Mind Flay if everything else is on cooldown. Then I'll put on the stat priority. But again, stat priority is quite self-explanatory. So you want to go for your spell hit cap, obviously. You're going to want to then stack as much spell power as possible. Then crit and haste is fairly equal. Then you want int, spirit. That's it. But we don't worry about too much further than that. Obviously MP5 if you're really struggling to get anything else. So that's your stat priority. Stat priority may change as you get gear. I've said it in every single video. You need to be simming your character. This is more or less just a base stat priority of what you should be gunning for when you first ding 70. So fairly straightforward. So I'm not going to do anything else on rotation. I'm just gonna leave it there. So we'll move on to PvE and PvP viability. So some of this you've got to remember is completely just my opinion. So you can flame me in the comments or whatever and say no, you're wrong. That's fine. I'm going purely by, like I say in the description of every video, some of it's fact, some of it's based on my memory, and some of it's speculation, if you like. So, from memory, Disc Priests were always really solid in PvP, specifically arenas. So were Shadow Priests. Now, Shadow in TBC is perfectly viable for PvP, and it will be strong. In PvE, it will be an absolute requirement. So, you may be able to make a decent spec from Shadow which will carry you through arenas and PvE at the same time, which that's pretty good to be able to have a spec that you can do both solidly on. The skill cap for Shadow in PvP is a lot higher than Disc, I would say. Again, just my opinion, but you should absolutely do it, because I would PvP with a Shadow Priest, because they are going to be strong. Because you've got to remember, they've got Mass Dispel, they've got everything that a Disc Priest has got, apart from obviously things like pain suppression and things like that. But the general utility, even a Shadow Priest's got it. So that's cool. PvE viability, Holy will be the way to go. One of the two specs that I put on, a few minutes ago. But obviously Shadow is viable in PvE as well. Disc probably is viable. You probably could heal fairly well as a Disc Priest, but it's the same old scenario. You could go as a Disc Priest, but if you want to top the healing, or you want to be as effective for your raid as possible, then Holy is the way to go, because PvP is more Disc is more PvP orientated. So absolutely viable. The whole class is viable. All three specs have got their uses, and as I say, don't be deterred from going Disc. I'm sure you can go in and raid Karazhan and stuff like that, but if you're in a hardcore raiding guild, I suspect you're going to be asked to be Holy, because it will just be superior on HPS and mana consumption as well. So then just my thoughts, just closing thoughts, and I'm hoping this video was quite quick. So my closing thoughts are, make sure you like and subscribe, because I'm going to be doing a really cool series of videos next. So I'm going to be doing, think of these TBC changes as the first series of a TV series. So this is the first series. Second series is going to be BIS, pre-raid BIS items for every single spec. So it will tell you, when you ding 70, what heroics do you need to be going for first? What reputation do you need to be going for first? What quests, what group quests or whatever give really good rewards that, are going to see you into Karazhan. I'm going to be trying something a little bit different with it. So rather than me just sat in front of the computer doing it, it is going to be a bit more animated. You will still see me if you want that, which you probably don't. Why would you? So, but it's gonna be quite cool. Got some good ideas that I'll play about with. So when the first one goes out, let me know in the comments whether you like the format or not. Because if you don't, I'll change it. If you do, I'll carry on, try and improve. You know, that's all I do with this channel, is try and up the video quality, the audio quality, everything as we go along. I've got a lot of new equipment coming as well soon, but you know, I might even do a video showing you it all because I'm really excited. So, my thoughts, in all seriousness, on the priest. I would play one. I could quite happily, even though I stated in my hunter video, which was the last one I done, I believe, that I don't like range DPS. I do like Shadow Priest. I like the priority system, tracking dots, mana management, also being a bit utility based so you can help the raid in different situations, you know, dropping out Shadow Form and throwing some heals around if needs be. I like their abilities. I like their PvP viability. I would play a Shadow Priest 100%. If it weren't for the fact that I'm a druid for life, I would play a priest. So if you're a priest, you should be happy. It's going to be a fantastic class in TBC, and everybody's going to want one in their party. That's it, really. There's, you know, they're a good class overall. Yeah, see you on the next one, which the next one's Mage, and it's the final video to the series, and then we can move on to the gears, the gear priority lists.